You're listening to Bookin Around Town with Jacques on the Audio Flow.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Bookin Around Town, and today we are booking around the town of Seattle. Now, I know most of you think that Seattle is a cold and dreary place, but I'll tell you, I've been there twice and it's absolutely beautiful. Of course, when it's not raining and you can see that mountain that looks like Olympus, which I think is called Rainier. I don't know. I think that's what it's called. But today we have a special guest, an author that is new to me, but I am so excited to chat with her about her upcoming release, Planet Perfect. Please help me welcome this week's guest, Charlotte Roth. Hi, Charlotte. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Can you believe that we are almost 2 months away from Christmas? October, November. Yeah, 2 months.
Yeah, don't mention it. It's too crazy to think about.
Don't you just love this time of year? So we're almost at Halloween, and they put up the Halloween stuff in August. Then they put up the Christmas stuff in September. So by the time December comes around, we're all done with Christmas and don't want to deal with that anymore. Are you like that too, or is it just me?
Oh no, I'm like that too. You go to Costco when you're still wearing flip-flops, look at Christmas and Halloween stuff. I'm like, that's too early. That's just too early.
Yeah, it's really odd that they do that. So, interestingly enough, there's nothing we can do about it. They put out everything at least 3 months in advance, I think. So, yeah, it makes you spend your money a lot faster. But
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm excited.
All about spending our money.
Yeah,
Yep.
really
Yeah.
fast too. And then we're broke. We're broke by Christmas. Broke by Christmas. That's my new hashtag. Well, I'm excited that you're on the show. I know we've been playing a little bit of email tag earlier this year, and we finally were able to get a chance to schedule our chat for today. And I just want to chat a little bit about you and how you came into your writing journey and things like that. Just to let everybody know, you shared with me that you're originally from Denmark, which is amazing, and now you're living in Seattle. You've been there, almost 12, 13 years now. So does being in Seattle now
Yep.
feel like home, or do you still, not really feel like, you're a native of Seattle yet? Well, you've been there 13 years though.
Well, it does feel like home a lot, I would say. I just went to Denmark and then it doesn't feel like home. Then it takes me a few days because that was my home. I waved goodbye to my sister and my mother, and I'm crying my eyes out. I'm like, why did I move to Seattle? But yes, then I come home because this is where my home is. This is where my kids are.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get older, and this is my family now. I'm not saying that my mom and my sister and my dad and friends are not my family, but you go from your own family to make your own family, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And I guess that and I'm like, my home is, I know that's such a cliche, but home is where the heart is. And I truly believe that. And my heart is with my kids, so this is home.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I've not been to Denmark yet. I hear it's absolutely beautiful. My grandmother's been there and shared some pictures and things like that. So when you go back and visit, do you have places that you say you just have to go to? Usually when I travel and I go to places that I frequent, I say, I've got to go to such and such when I'm there. Do you have places like that when you visit that you just must go and see or visit?
No, not really, because I go quite often, and twice a year. I think that's a lot, but I just go to see the people. The people is what it's, and a certain kind of foods, maybe.
Right. Certain kind of foods, like
but not
what?
really.
Because I'd like to know what they are. Those foods that you can only get there, you can't get them here, and if they have them here, it's just not the same.
Because I am Seattle, where there's a lot of people from the Scandinavian countries because they moved over here, I guess, because of lumber.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually get a lot of the stuff like rye bread and pickled herring, which is, I think, is delicious. I've served it to some of my friends here, and they had to spit it out. The very polite one, they just swallowed it.
I'm
If you hadn't
scared.
had it as a child, I can see how disgusting it must be.
What is it? Tell me. Wait, maybe I shouldn't ask you what it is. No, I really want to know. What is it? Pickled herring.
So you know rye bread, right? A
Uh-huh.
rye bread,
Mm-hmm.
like a dark, really dark bread. And the pickled herring is just herring that's like in a jar and it's pickled. It's kind of like like a pickles, but it's just herring.
Yeah. Did you see my face? Because we.
Yeah. Yes.
That sounds. I'm good. You could have stopped at rye bread. I like rye bread, so let's just stick with
Mm,
that. That's a
okay.
good thumbs up there.
Yeah.
So, how's your year been writing wise? We know that you had a release this May, was for Holding On to Hurt, a gripping story about a mother's love. And I want to kind of talk a little bit about that book and what it was like writing it and publishing it. What was that whole journey and I guess, the thought processes behind that particular book?
Well, so this book, so this is my fourth book, and this book was very, very different from any other book because I normally write what you can call like a lightweight chick lit, crossover young adult, crossover
Mm-hmm.
women's writing. So this is my first serious book. To sum it up, my husband started reading it a few weeks ago, and he looked at me and said, with tears in his eyes, and like, how can you write stuff like this? It's a very serious book. It's a book I felt I had to write. I have been involved in the Sandy Hook Promise
Mm-hmm.
as a Sandy Hook Promise leader, and I've been reading and researching a lot about school shootings
Mm-hmm.
and grief and this whole terrible thought about what it was with one of my kids who got shot. How would I react, and how would it feel to be a mother, like dealing with all this stuff? So the idea actually came after I watched Obama's speech after the Sandy Hook
Mm-hmm.
shooting. And when he read out the names of all the little kids who died in the terrible shooting, I just knew that there was a story that I wanted to write, but I had to wait a few years because it was just too emotional.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's kind of the thought process. And the more research I did and the more books I read about how to deal with grief and how to deal with guilt and how to deal with being a motherhood, parenthood. So that's kind of the whole thought process.
Yeah, that book sounds really deep and heart-wrenching. So what was your research like going into writing this book? Because it's still fiction, but then it
Yeah.
takes kind of the emotions from some, that school shooting, even, I guess going all the way back to Columbine and things like that. And so
Mhm.
what was your research like when you went into writing this story?
I mean, so I was particularly looking for like from the mother's perspective. There's something about us mothers. I'm not saying dads are great and dads are as involved with their kids today, but I was looking from the mom's perspective. Like, what does it mean to be a mom? What is our relationship with our kids? What is the most important thing in our lives? And it was kind of looking at it from another angle. Like, so how would I appreciate life more if something like this happens? That's what you always read. If something really terrible happens, a tragedy in the family, or if someone gets seriously ill, they stop and say, what will I do with my next year? I only have one more year to live. Like, it's about appreciating life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And so, what's been kind of the feedback? Because according to Amazon, it's a 5-star read. All of the reviews are 5 stars. What's kind of been some things that you've heard from some of the readers that they were able to kind of gain from reading that book?
So one of the greatest feedback that I personally think is a mom. She wrote that this is now a conversation we have at home.
Mm.
This is something we discuss at the dinner table. This is something that I want to talk with my kids about this. What would happen in a situation? So for me to actually make this a conversation at a dinner table with your kids, people told me that people are sharing their personal stories with me, that what happened to them, and someone wrote me an email about her neighbor was shot. So for me, it's like starting a conversation and also thinking about maybe ways to prevent this.
Yeah. Wow. And in the book cover, looking at the book cover, which is it's amazing. I think it really helps to shape the story with it. So, what was the thoughts, or how did you go about creating this particular cover? Because really, I mean, reading the title of the story and then looking at the cover, they go together, but then it still doesn't give you everything because it kind of looks like there are some shards there from the eyes. I don't know if it can be combined as like either glass or tears. I'm not really sure. So, what was the idea behind the concept of the book cover?
So the main character, Irene, she has a perfect life. So I wanted her to stand out as a perfect woman because she is, and her life is shattered in 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the shattering of the glass, and also because this is a school, the shooting takes place on a school bus, so there's a lot of shattered glass. And if you look very very closely in the shattered glass, you see pictures of a little boy lying in the hospital.
Yeah, I do. Now, as I zoom in on the picture, I can see that.
Yeah.
I wonder how many other people saw that or missed that. Um,
I don't know. I think it's like if you look like some covers, you take a second look, and people they actually told me, "Oh, now I see. I didn't see that
yeah.
at first." But and also, so the last name of the family in the book, last name is Hurt, so that's why it's called Holding On to Hurt. So it's got a double
Oh,
meaning.
wow. Wow. That's deep. That's deep, Charlotte. And I know this is a book that talks about a mother's love, and there's some tragedy, of course, that takes place in the
Mhm.
story. Um, I just I want to read the book, Charlotte, but I don't want to cry. Am I going to stay sad through the entire book, or at the end of the book? I know you don't want to tell, you don't want to spoil.
I'm not saying.
Look, just show me. I'll look at your picture, and you could just nod your head one way or the other and let me know if I'm going to am I just going to want to write you and say, "Why did you do that to me?" Is that going to be my reaction?
No, I mean the reaction I've had is that you need a lot of Kleenex. You will cry, but it's a cry that constantly I hope that you will cry because you're so it's actually a very selfish read that you're like, oh, if this happened to me, and that was my thought when I wrote it, but it's also, as I said, it's gonna make you stop up and appreciate what you have in life, because
Hmm.
everything you have can be gone in a second. And I think that's why we cry, because we cry when we read about something like this, because we look at our kids as we're reading a book like this and like, oh no, what if this
Yeah.
happened to me? And I think that even though a lot of people say, "Oh, I didn't want to pick up this book. I didn't want because I knew I would cry," and they do cry,
Hmm.
but they love it anyways, because crying is just an emotion. It's an experience, and and to be honest, it's also entertainment. If you laugh or
Yeah.
you cry, at least you're doing something with the audience.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm pretty sure I'm gonna pick up the book and read it, just because I think it's got some good depth in it, and it's relatable to some things that have happened throughout the country. But let's talk a little bit about how you got your start. And so that was your fourth book,
Hmm.
and so I'm going to take a stab and say Miss Apple Pants.
Hmm.
Was that your first book?
That was my first book, yes.
And,
And so that's been 5 years. And as an author, as a person, as a mom, probably, I think that I have evolved. I have also, I've become better at writing, but I think I've also become better at not just trying to write a story that's entertaining, but something that actually means something to me. I mean, Miss Applepants has layers too.
Hmm.
But I think when you start out, you're so focused on, oh, I want to be this, I want to entertain people, which is why you're right. But then
Hmm.
I also see my writing as a comment as the society we live in, and as I see my kids growing up, and it changes you as a person. So it also changes your writing.
Hmm.
But I do love my first book. That's my baby, and I wrote it when we first moved I started writing it a little bit when we first moved here, and I was kind of homesick, and that shows because I am writing about this perfect family,
Hmm.
that doesn't really exist, but it's so perfect that we all want to be in that family. And I think that's a combination of me being homesick, but
Hmm.
also because I didn't grow up in a perfect family with a mom and a dad. So I think that this is sometimes you can escape as an author, you can actually, like the readers do, but you as an author can also escape in this perfect world that you just want to live in. And I fell in love with the parents in this book, and I just wanted them to be my parents. And that was also what people like when people read the book. They're like, "Oh man, this family is like the perfect family. I want to be in that family." So I think that at least I accomplished with this book, even though it took me many many years to write.
Yeah, I love the title. Um, I want to know what the meaning about Miss Applepants. And then it says Lost in Seattle. So that's kind of why I figured, there was um some things going on in there. So is there a lot of you in this character, or is it more of, those emotions that you have, or, does the main character have some realistic ways that you are you that are Charlotte?
So I say the tone of voice is definitely me,
Okay.
and as I said, it's what I really wanted my child to be, because she's a teenager.
Mhm.
Miss Applepants, that's her nickname. Her mom and dad called her Miss Applepants, and her name is Eleanor Rigby. She's named after a Beatles song, and just everything about it is just kind of cute. But then actually, it started out being a little more young adult, a little bit more like lightweight, fun story. But then
Mhm.
actually in my own life, things happened. Like I had two miscarriages, and
Oh.
I was alone with that. We just moved from Denmark, and I sit here alone. I didn't have a lot of friends. And then I experienced, having two miscarriages, like you had to like deal with that all by yourself. And
Yeah.
that actually became a part of the story. So instead of just being like a young adult, haha, funny story, entertaining, it actually also suddenly took a little bit of a turn. And then it ended up being a lot about motherhood and
Mhm.
infertility and pregnancy. And so it dug a little bit deeper. It's not a deep, deep book. I'm not saying that, but it had some layers that it didn't have to be to and in the beginning.
Yeah. It sounds like it. So you mentioned that it started out a little YA, and then it got more into some other details. And were those details following, um I guess, the main character, her name's Eleanor, or did it follow
Yeah,
her,
Ella. Yeah.
Ella, or her parent? I guess I should just probably read the book and not ask you to give me all of the information. That's totally cheating, right? I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But you don't have to answer that. I'm gonna read the book because it seems like it's one of those books that starts one place, and then there's some things in it that you wouldn't expect to see or happen in the book. So it's not predictable. I think that's kind of what I got from what you said, that it kind of takes a turn, and you wouldn't really know that until you got into the book and saw the different layers of the story.
Yeah, and the story is so she finds a box of letters when they move to Seattle. She hates being in Seattle. It's raining, and she's
Yeah.
alone. And then she finds a box of letters that's actually love letters written in the 80s by a couple. Well, he moves to Denmark, so I could use all the knowledge and all the visuals and all the images and all things from Denmark. So so the letters are like half of the book actually.
Oh.
She's reading the letters. She's not supposed to read the letters because they're personal letters.
Yeah.
But she actually reads them in secret, and then her mom joins her, and a neighbor joins her. So they kind of form a little club where they read letters. The dad doesn't know because he would be really mad. But
I like it. Okay. Well, that gives me a better perspective on what I'm going in for. So I'm gonna I'm gonna pick that up, add it to my list of my never-ending TBR list here.
mhm.
That seems to continue to grow every time I get to chat with another author who's got a book that I want to read. So I like that. And so let's talk about. So you have a book that's releasing here in a few days. So if you want to tell us a little bit about that one, that is going to be releasing on October 24th.
So all of my books are standalones.
Okay.
And so it's not a series, but for me, they're like a theme connected in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And so the book before Holding On to Her is called A Dancing Queen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about a woman that has always been shamed for her body size. And she's always been told by her mom, you can't be a dancer because that's not for a big girl like you. And she's like, finally, at the age of 35, she finally, dares to show to the world that she can do whatever she wants.
Yeah.
So that started a whole series of thinking for me, like about body image awareness. And then I got invited to join a Twitter chat about body image awareness, about, how we're so obsessed with our bodies. A lot of people don't think that I have a problem with my body because I'm a skinny little girl, but we all have there's something we hate basically a lot of us, we hate our bodies, and it's so sad.
Yeah.
And I have two girls, they're 8. I see them growing up and I think they're super perfect. They're amazing, and they're like starting to have some of that. And I'm like, this can't be true. So this is actually followed me to my next book, which is about this whole notion about being perfect. And so my next book is called Planet Perfect, and it's about a couple who gets invited to move to a city, or more a community, a gated community far, far away, where they can where everything is perfect.
Mm.
And so this couple, she has been dealing with infertility for a long time, which also reflect back to me and to my first book. And in this community, one of the guys who has created this community, he is a fertility specialist. So a lot of his patients are moving there. So they are promised to get the best fertility care in the whole world. So, but what happens is they move there. I don't want to.
You can't tell us.
I can't tell too much, but a lot of things happen, and it makes her question about what's the price for being perfect? How far would you go to be perfect?
I love.
And so it's a very strong reflection about our society, social media. We look everywhere and everyone else is perfect. We think they're not really, but it makes us feel less. It makes us feel small. It makes us feel insecure because everyone has success. Everyone have a big car, whatever. And I think it's so sad because I think I'm a solid person with solid beliefs, but I get insecure by looking at other people. And why am I looking at other people? I shouldn't be looking at what other people look like or do, but we all do that, and it's just so sad, and it's not getting easier.
Yeah, it's weird. I wonder if we were wired that way, or programmed to compare ourselves to other people, or compare ourselves to things that we see and identify with what is perceived as perfect, and like you said, I think pretty much everybody has some type of. Do you remember this show called what's the show where they were like oh, why can't I remember it? But they were like changing everything, and at the beginning the two doctors would say, what is it you don't like about yourself? and they would go, see, now I'm going to have to go and look it up. But anyway, they were plastic surgeons or cosmetic surgeons, and
Oh.
people would come in and they would always want to change something about themselves. And I think that as society, we have kind of done that, and it's becoming younger and younger where, people are like, kids are like, I don't like my nose, or, I don't like this, I want this removed, or can I add this, or I just feel like I'm fat. That's usually my thing. It's like, I feel so fat. Let me get those diet pills because according to society, I'm supposed to be 120 pounds or 110, And so I can't wait to read this book, one, because I identify with infertility as well. And so, you made a point about what's the price of being perfect. That's a really good question that we should probably ask ourselves. And what does perfect mean? We don't really think about that. So, gosh.
No, and I think there's also this whole, it's not really taboo, but a little bit about infertility, because I do feel that a lot of people see that as a failure too. That if we can't produce kids, which is like the most natural thing that we were supposed to be, we're not perfect either. So it's like the perfection is on, I've dealt with this, and I think it's hard to talk about it. I've only talked about it after the fact when I had my babies. I'm like, okay, now I feel that I can talk about it because it finally happened. But in the midst of dealing with infertility, it's the hardest thing ever, because am I making you sad? I'm sorry. It's such a thing that eats us up, and it's also such a thing it's such a big, and people who never experienced it, they can't even imagine the emotions that people deal with. That it's something you can't let go of. It's just a big part of you, and it's not like dealing with anything else, I think.
Yeah, and it's so like you mentioned just a few seconds ago, people who haven't been through that, unfortunately, sometimes they don't understand that it's better for them not to give feedback. They may say, well, you can always adopt. Well, we know that we can always adopt. But it's different when you experience motherhood the way we identify as natural. You know what I mean? It's being able to carry it, even if you using a specialist, and you can't do that. And some people just don't get that. So I'm glad that this book is coming out, and I'm probably going to cry, even though I don't know if it's meant to, to do that. But it's got some subject matter that's very relatable, I think, to more and more people who are dealing with fertility issues. I think we see that a lot now, more than we did maybe 10 or 15, 20 years ago, or people weren't talking about it. But now, more recently, there's been a lot of people who can identify with that. So, darn, so I gotta wait 2 more days for the book to come out. So I guess I'll I'll just be waiting on that. And so after you finished writing that book, and books that kind of deal with those issues or that subject matter, is it cathartic to you? Does it, really kind of help you continue to move on from some of those things that you experienced?
Yes and no, because I have, when I write and before I even think out the story and it comes to me, and what do you say, I think I've already dealt with it, some of it. It may come back to me as I'm writing it, but I'm writing through it. So I think a lot of the emotions that I have with it is they're not done, but they're like, they work through it. Does that make sense? I mean, for me, it's like when I get the reaction from people starting reading it, that's when I'm like, get a new thought on it, or I see it in a different light, or people, when they share their story, it brings new emotions to it, but not like the story itself.
Yeah. And it's because you identify, and there's that sense of empathy and sympathy, I think. And so, yeah, I can't wait for this book to come out. And so that book is coming out again, everybody, on October 24th. And it is called Planet Perfect by Charlotte Roth. And Charlotte, so after this book releases, is there anything else we can look forward to before the year ends?
No. I wish so. So there's different kinds of writing or writers or authors that, I mean, I know a lot of my author friends, they pop out like, I don't know how they do it, but like 12 books a year.
Yeah.
But that's a different kind of writing, though. They have a formula, it's a series, and it's the next in the series. So I think they have this whole universe planned out and all these people. For me, writing a book takes time because it's, there's research and then some weeks I write like crazy, and then some weeks I'm just thinking, if that makes sense. And I think you
Yeah.
need to be able to put it away a little bit and kind of like, I guess it's like if you're like a painter and you paint something, you have to look away and then you look again, you see it in a different light. I think that's how it is. And also, as I said in the beginning, I'm a mother first.
Yeah.
And sometimes, even though I planned, oh, today I'm going to write like for 8 hours, boom, someone gets sick, boom, someone has a dentist appointment, or I have to, I don't know, they need new shoes, something. So it's, there's always something. And I remember in the beginning, it would make me really like, like I need to do this. But I'm like, now I'm kind of letting go. I'm like, I only have my kids, I don't know, all of a sudden they're off to college. So I just need to, I can always write that book. But I know the market is different though. They want you popping out those books like crazy because the readers want the next book, the next book. But I think in order to write a good book, I hope it's good. Then I also think you need to let it rest for.
Yeah.
I mean, ideally you should let it rest for like 3 months, but then I wouldn't be writing books. But have you read the latest book by Jodi Picoult? I can't pronounce her
Now,
name.
ask me the last time I had a chance to read a book. Wait, don't ask me that. No, I haven't
No,
read it.
I don't want to ask you that because you said you would read mine.
Oh, I am going to read yours. Trust me. I have to because, I mean, you know why. I have to read that book. So, but no, I haven't read that book.
Oh, and I can't remember. It's not Small Little Lies. That's not it. Little Big Things or something. It's amazing. That's another thing. That's your duty as an author, is to read a lot of books. Okay, I'm going to move over here because I can tell you exactly what the book's name is.
Was it a TV series?
No, that's why I got confused, because that was Big Little Lies. That was a
Yeah.
different
Oh.
one. That's a different author. No, let me see. So the book is, and she's one of my favorite authors. It's a very controversial book, very, especially what's happening right now in Charlottesville. It's very like on that, like about diversity and stuff like that. So Small Great Things. Small Great Things. Okay. It's amazing. Yeah, it's kind of like Little Big Lies, Small Great Things. It's kind of that's the same title almost.
Yeah.
But this is an amazing book, and I think it's very, as I said, reading it right now is probably the best time to read it with everything going on in the world, the crazy world. So,
okay,
yeah.
I've just added that to my list too. So thank you. So now I've added 3 books just from our chat today to add to my list, and hopefully I will read them before Christmas. So you just make sure on Facebook you go and ask me, did you read that book yet? It's kind of my reminder to tell me, yeah, you've got to read that before Christmas. You've got 2 months to read it. So I've added them all to my list. You're done for the year. I like that you have your balance of family first, and I'm hoping that we as readers are more patient with authors, because you guys have lives outside of writing. And I always try to tell people in my reader groups and other people I interact with, they do have a life outside of writing. Writing is what they do for work. But they still have to have time for their families and things like that. And just like we do the same thing in our daily lives, we have to be able to stop working and spend time with our families because, time gets away from us. Like my mom's getting older. I can't just think she's going to be here forever. So I have to stop,
Hmm.
and enjoy that time with them. And so I asked you earlier when we were doing our sound check, what do you do for fun? And you said you have 3 kids. That's your fun, but you do like to write, and you said that you have a favorite author. So outside of, I guess maybe women's lit, chick lit, are there anything else, any other genres that you enjoy, reading either just in your personal time or with your kids?
I mean, I do like female authors, and I do like um, reading books with female protagonists. There's something empowering about reading about strong girls or weak girls. I do like very realistic novels. Like I'm not a big fan of too much weird stuff with people turning into wolves. That's not my style. I do like real people that have real problems. Like we all insecure, we all get, scared, we all cry. I mean, chick lit books, yes, I like them, but not if it's all about like Sex in the City problems, where which kind
Right,
of designer shoes do I have to wear today?
right.
Because that's not real. I mean, I don't have any designer shoes. I don't know about you.
Right. So you like to be on more of the side of reality, like
Yes,
contemporary reality. I'm going to use
yes.
that.
And if I read any kind of romance books, it's also contemporary romance. I'm not into like fairy tale romance. It has to be like real romance with real problems, with guys dumping you and not calling you back, stuff like that, which is also part of the real world. So,
Yeah,
and I
it
kind of
really
like
is.
that sometimes. I like the meeting of people. That's actually
Hmm.
one of my next books. I like when there's something interesting in how people meet and how they fall in love. I think that the beginning of a relationship is amazing.
Yeah.
And I love my husband, and I think I love him more than the day we met. But there's something about sometimes when I think about something romantic, I automatically like go back to that meeting. There's something about the
Mm.
meeting,
Yeah.
and
Well,
yeah,
I can't wait to see what you do with that because that sounds fantastic, about meeting people and how that whole thing kind of unfolds. So maybe I'll be looking for that in 2018.
hmm,
Just saying. And
yeah.
so we'll be looking for that. So do you attend book signings, Charlotte, any in Seattle or outside the state?
I've done a few, but not really. No, I've mostly done like things online because
Mhm.
it's more available, and and I don't have anyone to help me with that. But I actually just did sign with a PR agency, and they will help me with this with my next releases. I think and I hope, and because I need. So that's another thing about trying to get out there. There's so many people who write books, which is
Yeah.
it's so easy to publish today, which is good and bad because
Hmm.
so many people are doing it that you're like a little fish in the sea. But then it's also nice that you actually have that right at your hand, that you can
Right.
actually, and you can communicate with so many people today on
Right.
Facebook, on Twitter. I talk with people all over the world. You connect with so many people. You get an email for someone in Australia, good morning, ma'am. I'm like, oh, you're in Australia? It's weird and wonderful at the same time.
Yeah, social media, if for nothing else, it really makes networking and connecting with people that much easier. So just like we're on
Yeah.
Skype and I could see you and you could
Yes.
see me, I mean,
Yeah.
technology is amazing.
It is
But
amazing.
it's like you're in Seattle, and hopefully I will be able to visit again next year. They do have a couple signings out there. So you just never know. You might get to one of those, and I'll
Yeah.
get to meet you, or we'll meet at a
That'll
Starbucks,
be
and we'll create our own signing at a Starbucks and just invite people to come on over, and you'll have Planet Perfect and maybe one of those uh, let's meet books, how we met books, and we'll just do
hmm
our own signing. So see, I'm already throwing that out there so we can get that done.
That's fun. That'll be fun. Yeah, I love. I mean, I'm a big Starbucks fan. I love coffee. I'm one of those person that I have to limit my coffee. I know that some people have it with, I don't know, alcohol. Chocolate,
Yeah.
I'm the coffee holic. I have to limit. I have to look at the watch. When did I have my last coffee? And then I had to pace myself.
Okay, well, we will not let you drink too much. We'll put you on a limit, maybe 2 to 3 cups within that span of time. I won't let you,
Yes.
have 10 cups of coffee all lined up with lots of
Okay, I
sugar.
won't.
So at least that's me. All right, Charlotte, how can our listeners find you on social media or online if they want to get in contact with you about any of your books?
So I'm on Facebook, Charlotte Roth author. I'm also on Twitter, Miss Charlotte Roth, MS Charlotte Roth. And I have a website, and it's charlotterothbooks.com. And that's ROTH. I can't even spell my own name.
That's okay. I have that problem too. All right. All right. Well, thank you so much, Charlotte, for being on Booking Around Town with us today. It has been a pleasure chatting with you. Good luck on your upcoming release of Planet Perfect. And do you know if that book is if it's going to be available on pre-order? Is it on Amazon or will it be on other retailers as well?
Amazon.
Okay.
And on pre-order, yes.
Okay. All right. So be sure that you guys are looking out for that book. Be sure that you are also following Booking Around Town on Facebook at Booking Around Town, also on Twitter at Booking Around TWN, and on Instagram at Booking Around Town. You can also download these episodes on iTunes and Google Play. Just search for Booking Around Town in podcasts. We also stream on iHeartRadio and tune in, and you can also find us on Booking Around Town on YouTube. So we're covering every platform. Thanks so much to my producer Danielle at Firefly Productions, and also to my assistant Rebecca for keeping everything on schedule. Until next time, everyone, keep booking. Have a great week. Bye.